You won't believe what I found on Facebook. My husband, who was supposed to be on a business trip, was standing at an altar, hand in hand with another woman, exchanging vows like I never existed. The serene backdrop of a beach wedding, the radiant smiles, the exchange of rings. It was all captured in excruciating detail, a public declaration of a love that was never meant to be. My love, my marriage, my life as I knew it, shattered into a million pieces with a single scroll. How would you feel if your whole world imploded? Not from a heated argument, not from a tearful confession, but from a casual glance at social media, because that's exactly what happened to me. The digital age, with all its connectivity, can be a cruel messenger, delivering devastating truths in the most unexpected ways. This wasn't just a simple infidelity. It was a carefully constructed alternate reality, a double life, meticulously crafted behind my back. Stay with me, because this story isn't just about betrayal, it's about resilience, self-discovery, and the long, arduous journey to healing. It's a story that resonates with so many, a story of hidden lives, broken promises, and the strength it takes to walk away. From the outside, my life looked idyllic. Daniel and I had been together for 7 years. We'd built a comfortable home, a symbol of our commitment and shared future. We talked about starting a family, picturing our laughter echoing through the halls, imagining tiny footprints padding across the carpet. Daniel was a successful businessman, often traveling for work. His trips were frequent, sometimes lasting several days, but I never questioned them. I trusted him implicitly, believed in the love we shared, and saw no reason to doubt his fidelity. Our life together was a tapestry woven with shared dreams, inside jokes, and the comfortable rhythm of daily routines. But looking back, the clarity of hindsight paints a different picture. The subtle shifts in his behavior, the almost imperceptible changes in our dynamic, now seem like glaring warning signs. The late-night messages he'd quickly swipe away, his face suddenly guarded, his explanation vague. The unexplained weekend trips, shrouded in the guise of urgent business meetings, leaving me with a nagging sense of unease. The sudden change in his cologne, a new, sophisticated scent that lingered in the air long after he'd left for the day. The way he started dressing, sharper, even when he wasn't going to the office. A subtle yet significant departure from his usual casual style. Had I been willfully blind? Had I chosen to ignore the whispers of doubt, preferring the comfort of my perceived reality? Or was he simply that good at lying? A master manipulator who could weave a web of deceit so intricate that I never suspected the truth. Perhaps it was a combination of both, my trust and his calculated deception, that led me down this path of heartbreak. It all started on a seemingly ordinary Friday morning. Daniel kissed me goodbye, a quick peck on the cheek, his luggage already by the door. "Big conference in Chicago," he said, his voice brisk and efficient. "Don't wait up for my calls. I'll be in meetings all day." It wasn't unusual for him to travel, so I didn't think much of it at the time. I busied myself with my own work, my mind occasionally drifting to the upcoming weekend, the plans we had tentatively made for a quiet dinner at home. But something felt off. His demeanor was different. There was an unfamiliar energy about him, a subtle undercurrent of excitement in his eyes that didn't quite align with the weariness he usually displayed before a business trip. I couldn't put my finger on it, but a small, persistent voice in the back of my mind whispered that something was amiss. Still, I brushed it off. I attributed my unease to a long week, a touch of stress, anything but the unthinkable truth. Until later that night. I was relaxing on the couch, scrolling through Facebook, a mindless pastime I often indulged in to unwind. Suddenly, a photo popped up on my feed. It was one of those suggested posts from someone I didn't know, a stranger whose profile had never encountered before. But the image stopped me cold, freezing me in place. A wedding, A picture-perfect beachside ceremony bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun, the bride radiant in a flowing white gown, the groom handsome and smiling, and right there, in the center of it all, holding hands with the bride, his face beaming with what appeared to be genuine happiness, was my husband, Daniel. My heart stopped beating. My breath caught in my throat. My mind raced, trying to grasp the impossible. This had to be a mistake, a cruel joke, a case of mistaken identity, anything but the horrifying reality staring back at me from the screen. My hands trembled as I clicked on the profile of the woman who had posted the photo. Her name was Olivia. I scrolled through her pictures, each image a dagger twisting in my heart. There were dozens of photos of her and Daniel together, their faces close, their smiles intimate, their bodies touching. They were at restaurants, at concerts, on vacation. Their relationship, meticulously documented on social media, stretched back months. He had a whole other life, a whole other relationship, a whole other person he was sharing his life with. The man I thought I knew, the man I had vowed to spend my life with, was a complete stranger. A wedding? A second wife? How is this even possible? The foundations of my life crumbled beneath me, leaving me adrift in a sea of confusion, disbelief, and overwhelming pain. And then I found something even worse. A video. The caption read, "Finally married my soulmate." I hesitated, my finger hovering over the play button. Part of me didn't want to know. Part of me couldn't bear to see it. But a morbid curiosity, a desperate need to understand the depth of his betrayal, compelled me to press play. The video showed Daniel standing under a flower-adorned arch, the ocean shimmering in the background. He was staring into Olivia's eyes, his expression filled with what looked like adoration. And then he began to speak. The vows he recited were the same vows he had promised me years ago on our own wedding day. Word for word. The room spun, my head pounded, tears streamed down my face, but beneath the tears, a burning rage began to simmer. This wasn't just some fleeting affair, a momentary lapse in judgment. This was a calculated, premeditated act of deception. He had planned an entire wedding behind my back, a lavish celebration of his fake love, while I remained completely oblivious, living in a fool's paradise. He had lied to me, manipulated me, and betrayed me in the most profound way imaginable. Who was this man? The man I loved, the man I trusted, the man I had built my life with. He was a phantom, a figment of my imagination. The real Daniel was a stranger, a master of disguise who had successfully concealed his true self for years. I couldn't stay silent. I couldn't pretend that I hadn't seen what I had seen. I called him, my hands shaking so violently I could barely dial the number. Over and over again I called, my heart pounding in my chest, each unanswered call amplifying my panic and despair. No answer. I texted him the screenshot of his own wedding picture, the image of him and Olivia standing at the altar, their hands clasped together, their eyes locked in what appeared to be blissful happiness. My message was short, direct, and filled with the weight of my shattered world. Care to explain? The hours that followed were agonizing. I sat in stunned silence, the wedding photos flashing through my mind, each image a fresh wave of pain. I replayed our life together in my head, searching for clues, for any indication that he was living a double life. But all I found were memories, happy memories that now felt tainted, poisoned by his betrayal. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, his reply came. A single, chilling sentence. I can explain. It's not what you think. Not what I think. What could possibly explain marrying another woman? What twisted logic could justify such a blatant act of infidelity? His words were an insult to my intelligence, a slap in the face of my already wounded heart. I demanded he come home. I needed answers. I needed to understand the madness that had consumed our lives. When he finally walked through the door, his face pale and drawn, I was waiting. Arms crossed, laptop open to Olivia's Facebook page, the wedding photos displayed prominently on the screen. The silence in the room was thick with tension. His face turned ghost white. The color drained from his skin, leaving him looking like a man who had seen a ghost. He avoided eye contact, his gaze darting around the room as if searching for an escape route. He knew he was caught. The carefully constructed facade he had maintained for so long was crumbling before my eyes. I didn't mean for you to find out like this, he muttered, his voice barely a whisper. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, a nervous tick I had seen him do countless times before, but now it seemed amplified, a clear indication of his guilt. You were going to tell me? I asked, my voice laced with sarcasm. When? After your honeymoon? After you'd settled into your new life with your soulmate? The word felt like acid on my tongue. Silence. He couldn't meet my gaze. He mumbled something unintelligible, his eyes fixed on the floor. And then the truth, or at least his version of it, began to spill out, a torrent of excuses, half-truths, and outright lies. He claimed Olivia was someone he met during one of his business trips. He recounted a fabricated story of a chance encounter, a whirlwind romance, a connection he couldn't deny. It started, he said, as a harmless flirtation, a casual fling, a way to alleviate the boredom and loneliness of being on the road. But Olivia, he claimed, fell in love with him, and he just couldn't break her heart. The absurdity of his excuse was breathtaking. He couldn't break her heart, but he could shatter mine into a million pieces. He couldn't bear to disappoint a woman he had known for a few months, but he could betray the woman he had vowed to love and cherish for the rest of his life. The hypocrisy was staggering. So instead of being honest, instead of ending the affair like any decent human being would, he played the role. He lied to her, showering her with false promises and empty declarations of love. He lied to me, weaving a tangled web of deceit, fabricating stories about business meetings and conferences, all while building a separate life with another woman. He lived a double life, a charade so elaborate it was almost unbelievable. And his biggest excuse, the one he thought would somehow absolve him of his sins? I never stopped loving you, he said, his voice thick with emotion, or what I assumed was supposed to be emotion. Do you know what's funny? That's what cheaters always say. They claim they still love their spouse, even as they're betraying them in the most intimate and devastating way possible. They cling to the word love as a shield, a justification for their actions. But love isn't deception. Love isn't manipulation. Love isn't standing at an altar, putting a ring on someone else's finger while your wife sits at home, completely unaware of your treachery. Love is honesty, trust, and respect. And Daniel had shown me in the most brutal way possible that he possessed none of those qualities. This kind of betrayal, this elaborate charade of a double life, happens more often than we realize. How many women or men are living in a blissful lie, completely unaware that their partner is leading a secret existence, a life of infidelity and deceit? How many families are built on a foundation of lies, a house of cards waiting to collapse? Have you ever wondered how many secrets your partner is hiding? Have you ever questioned their unexplained absences, their sudden changes in behavior, their evasive answers? The thought is terrifying, but it's a reality for so many people. This isn't just a story. This is the reality for countless individuals who have experienced the gut-wrenching pain of betrayal. And the signs? They're often there, subtle whispers of doubt that we choose to ignore, preferring the comfort of our illusions to the harsh light of truth. We rationalize, we make excuses, we convince ourselves that everything is fine, even when our gut tells us otherwise. I walked away. That very night, while he was still trying to explain his inexplicable actions, I packed my bags. I gathered the remnants of my shattered life, the photos, the mementos, the pieces of a future that would never be. I refused to spend another minute in the same house with him, in the same space that had been tainted by his lies. I refused to let someone who disrespected me so deeply, who betrayed me so completely, have a second chance. He had made his choice. He had chosen a life of deceit, a life built on lies. And I chose myself. I chose my own happiness, my own peace of mind, my own self-respect. Daniel begged, he pleaded, he swore he'd leave Olivia, swore he'd change, swore he'd become the man I thought I had married. He promised everything, knowing that promises were just words, empty gestures that held no meaning. But a man who can stand at an altar, say vows to another woman while wearing a ring from his wife, a man who can so easily betray the trust of the person who loves him most, that man is beyond redemption. His words were hollow, his promises worthless. It took months to heal. Months of therapy, months of tears, months of grappling with the pain of betrayal. There were days when I felt like I would never recover. Days when the weight of his deception threatened to crush me. But today I stand stronger than ever. I have rebuilt my life piece by piece, stronger and more resilient than before. And if there's one thing I've learned from this experience, it's this. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Don't make excuses for their behavior. Don't try to rationalize their lies. Believe what you see, trust your instincts, and walk away. So tell me, if you were in my shoes, would you have walked away? Or would you have stayed, clinging to the hope that he would change, that he would become the man you thought he was? Let me know in the comments. And if you've ever been through betrayal, if you've ever felt the sting of infidelity, just know you are not alone. Your pain is real. Your feelings are valid. And you will heal. It takes time, but you will find your strength again. Like, subscribe, and share if this story resonated with you, if it gave you chills, if it reminded you of your own experiences. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and trust your instincts.